Sometimes you just have to go back to the classics, and on today's episode of the Sunday Strategy Spotlight, as it is, we're going to do just that. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and welcome back to the channel. Hello everyone, if you enjoy what I do, including casual conversations about some of the greats of turn-based strategy, regular strategy, or just guides and news and other gaming stuff in general, a like on this video and a subscription to the channel, as always, would be very much appreciated. Thank you so much. It's been a little bit of an odd week for me. There's a reason that this episode is coming to you on Sunday rather than Saturday, as this series is supposed to be. My work schedule has been all messed up at my real-life job. I've been a little under the weather, so I've had to shuffle some things around and muster up the motivation to be able to actually get this done for y'all. But since that is the case, I wanted to talk about what is, for me, an absolute comfort game, and that is, of course, Fire Emblem 8, The Sacred Stones. Sacred Stones is my favorite entry in the series. It is also my entry point. It is the first game in the series that I ever played, and I've been thinking about it a lot recently, due in part to the tier list that I did covering the visuals of the entire Fire Emblem series and what ones are the best, what ones are the worst. Spoiler alert, I ranked Sacred Stones pretty dang high, especially seeing as how it's by far the best of the 3 GBA games. And also, a few people have been watching my old FE8 Let's Play from years back and talking to me about it as well, so it's been on my mind recently. Since it's been a while since I played it, I figured it was a good opportunity to go back, revisit it slightly, and talk about it with y'all, and explain why it is that I feel that it is one of the best entries in the series, and why to this day it is still my favorite. Of course, the game itself should need no introduction to you unless you are a new Fire Emblem fan, starting with like Awakening, Three Houses, things like that, and haven't taken the chance to go back and play some of the older games. If that is you, I highly encourage you to rectify that situation. Fire Emblem 7 and 8 in particular are phenomenal. 6 is a little bit shakier, but it's still good. But FE8 in particular is the highlight of what the Game Boy Advance era of gaming in general had to offer, honestly. And it has absolutely stood the test of time as a phenomenal entry in the Fire Emblem series. As the epitome of everything that Intelligent Systems was able to do with the Game Boy Advance, incredible music, phenomenal sprite work, both in terms of character portraits and actual battle portraits, awesome different designs, the reincorporation of skills, the reincorporation of a world map, the ability to grind and do skirmishes, dungeons. There's so much that FE8 brought to the table that has since then been slowly trickling into the series in a more permanent manner, goes to show just how ahead of its time it was. Oddly, a lot of people still view FE7 as the best of the 3 Game Boy Advance titles. I absolutely could not disagree with that more. 7 is phenomenal, don't get me wrong, but FE8 just refines everything to a mirror shine. It might not have the same punishing level of difficulty as something like Hector Hard Mode, but the Hard Mode campaign of Sacred Stones is still a ton of fun, and especially if you don't allow yourself to do any grinding in like the Tower of Volney, it is still quite the challenge, especially if you get some bad growths or things like that. The main jumping off point for this video is that Fire Emblem Visuals tier list that I did recently, and it really just did get me thinking about how beautiful of a game FE8 is. If you could compare any random still of 2 or 3 characters talking in Sacred Stones to Binding Blade or even Blazing Blade, the difference in art is incredible. The levels of shading, the designs of characters, the slightly more grounded look, while still being very anime and very Fire Emblem, how much more intricate the actual landscapes are that are behind character portraits, it's legitimately insane. It is so impressive how much of a leap FE8 took in terms of sprite work and portraits. It blows me away every time I look at it. And that's to say nothing of all of the different animations that were brought in. I talked about this in the visuals tier list as well, but all of the new actual class designs, all the monster classes, new things like your Wyvern Knights, your modified classes like your Rangers, Great Knights, one of the single best looking iterations of the class, and one of the single best looking classes period in the entire history of Fire Emblem. There's just so much going on from a visual standpoint that makes FE8 a treat to play. All of the music is phenomenal. It has some of my absolute favorite tracks in the series, and to me, the story is one of the more compelling ones. It's still simple, early Fire Emblem games especially, not known for having intensely deep storylines. It's there to help push the game along, but the story of Erica Ephraim and Leon and what happens with the Sacred Stones, the Demon King, Leon's attempts to help his father and his country, it is compelling in a lot of ways, where there's really just like, oh, I need to protect my people, or I want to get revenge for characters like Eliwood and Hector and Lynn. But with Erica, Ephraim, and Leon, there's more to it that makes it so much more of a tragic tale and makes it a much more compelling replay over and over, because you get to experience the drama there in a way that most other Fire Emblem games don't allow you to, at least from this period. Speaking of replayability, of course, we do need to talk about what Sacred Stones brings to the table in that regard. And again, it's nice. Bringing a split storyline with different maps and battles to go on in a fairly unique way, allowing us to just start with Erica and go through the first few missions of the game, then get that choice. Do you want to follow Erica? Do you want to follow Ephraim? And have very different missions as a result. I would say Ephraim's are slightly more difficult than Erica's, but they do have just their own unique fun aspects to them. Even if you wind up coming back to a pretty similar space when both armies meet back up, it's still nice that on subsequent playthroughs you'd be like, well, I did Erica's route last time, let's do Ephraim's this time, just because. Change of pace, you know? And it does provide quite a nice change of pace. On hard mode, the game is just difficult enough that you do have to keep things in mind. Enemies are just enough of a threat, even basic enemies, that you can't just throw whoever you want at a problem and expect to win, which is always good. And there's a lot of different potential for different types of team compositions based on who it is that you want to bring in your party. There's a wide range of characters, something that I've been missing more and more from more recent games. Engage did a good job with having plenty of characters that you could use, but it's been pared down a bit over the years, I would say. And thanks to the branching class promotions that Sacred Stones brings to the table for the first time ever really in the series, you have so much freedom compared to past entries in how you want to utilize different characters. I can't even tell you the number of different ways that I've built my army over the years with how many times I've played Sacred Stones. Like, well, okay, I want to run a Paladin forward this time instead of a Great Knight forward. Or, well, all of the trainees have a bunch of different branching paths they can take. I usually use General Amelia, but I wonder what Great Knight Amelia looks like. Or how is Warrior Ross or Hero Ross? Just different things like that, giving you the option to completely change things up. And like, you would think it's not as big of a deal as it is, but it really, really is. The choices that you make for promotions in Sacred Stones can have such a dramatic impact on the way you're able to play the game, and it's just one more reason why I find it just to be so much fun. Like, you go into Fire Emblem 7 and it's like, all right, well, if I use Lowen, he's going to become a Paladin. He's kind of weirdly tanky, so he's going to be like a weird tank Paladin. Don't really have any options there. If you had the branching classes that you had in FE8 and FE7, dude, Great Knight Lowen would be insane. Like, there's just a level of customizability in Sacred Stones that, again, we really didn't see come back to the fore until Awakening, when Awakening gave us so many different options. It's still, I guess, too, with like Shadow Dragon and New Mystery of the Emblem, where you could class change, but it just wasn't as impactful. Awakening really leaned into the whole job classing, reclassing all of your characters into different stuff that really started in Sacred Stones, and I love that about it. While, of course, the campaigns are fun, I do really enjoy the fact that we have all of these skirmish maps that can get quite nasty, especially in the creature campaign, and then of course the Tower of Volney and the Lagdao Ruins, which I greatly enjoy as post-game dungeons as well. They're simple, sure, they're not anywhere near as involved as some other options that would crop up later in the series, especially like the dungeons in Echoes, which, God, I would love to see that make a comeback. But I like that they're there as an option for you to mess around and actually play with your endgame army, especially the Lagdao Ruins. The fact that those are the locations that you go through to unlock all the post-game characters as well, instead of just having random challenge maps, I love that too. I think that's a ton of fun. It's just a nice way to have a post-game campaign in a fairly limited scope GBA game. Obviously, there's not a ton that could go on those cartridges, so the fact that these exist is a blast. Finally, as far as gameplay tropes are concerned for Fire Emblem games, I love what Sacred Stones does as well. It has what is, in my opinion, the best iteration of a desert map in the series. I love the battle for Gehenna Hall with the different Grado generals in the corners and having those different aspects of armies that you have to fight, getting reinforcements from the south. It's just, or well, coming in from the south, depending on if you're playing through on a Frame story or Erica story, but it's just such an awesome map that still has all the like go and find all the hidden items in the desert, but also has more going on with it. You have your different characters that are growth characters that are hard to use at the beginning, but become really strong with the trainees, similar to your Ests or your Ninos, things like that. And you have some fun variations on different character tropes as well. The fact that you get Ford as your first Cavalier, who you're like, oh, well, this is going to be the Green Cavalier. Kind of weird that he's coming in on his own, but whatever. Only to find out later that the Red and Green Cavaliers are actually with a frame instead is a fun little twist. And again, gives you options in terms of what type of Cavalier character you want to be able to use. There's a lot more variety in terms of map design, which I absolutely love. Like, the big battles in Fire Emblem 8 feel like proper battles. It's one of the things that I love about it. Again, the battle for Gehenna Hall, where you've got two different Grado general armies on either sides of the map, or when you're going to be charging across the plains with Erica when you're fighting, I believe Ainz is the name. I'm doing this all from memory, so apologies that I don't remember the exact battle name. But, like, you actually have proper enemy formations surrounding you that you have to push towards, and then reinforcements coming from behind with Cormag, and you have a turn limit in terms of how long you need to survive or beat the boss. There's just a level of variety here in map design that I severely miss when playing Fire Emblem 6 and 7, and even some other entries as well. Like, some of the latter entries in the series don't hit the same high notes for me that Sacred Stones does, which is a shame, but it really shows how strong the map design in Sacred Stones can be. And of course, the different strategies that come to mind when you're actually playing against monsters versus normal human troops adds a nice depth of strategy as well. There's just some monster enemies that are so scary. The dogs, like, move over, Myrmidons. I'm not worried about you anymore. The mouth dogs are terrifying. The centaurs, like, they will just cleave you in half. Scarier than any other enemy in the game a lot of times. There's so much cool stuff that Sacred Stones does with enemies that make you rethink the way that you're playing the game, especially if you're someone who's played 6 and 7 and you're used to the same enemy soldier, knight, fighter, swordmaster, like the same things you've been dealing with for years are completely turned on their head, because now those can be mixed in with monster troops. You can just have an exclusive army of monster troops. It gets scary really fast, especially when you start going into the Lagdao ruins and you're dealing with Gorgons and long-range attacks and stone and just, terrifying, terrifying. All told, Sacred Stones really is a gem in the crown of Fire Emblem, and while yes, of course, it is very well known and well beloved, especially nowadays, I do think it is still quite underrated when you look at the series as a whole, especially because there's a lot of new fans who probably really haven't had much experience with the GBA games or Sacred Stones. You know, back in the day, I think it was a pretty common outlook that Sacred Stones was the least loved of the GBA games, partially because people just wanted that raw challenge experience, whereas Sacred Stones brings a more rounded gaming experience to it, which is what I've always enjoyed. If you have not played Fire Emblem the Sacred Stones, I highly, highly, highly encourage you to do so through whatever means you need to, wink, wink, wink. Go check it out. Let me know what your thoughts are about it in the comments, and especially if you're someone who's played it and loves it already. Well, like, I would love to gush over it with you guys. I have a lot of things that I want to do with Sacred Stones in the future. I've been bandying around the idea of doing a recruits-only run, like Ross, Amelia, and Ewan, literally just clearing the game with them. I think it would be a lot of fun. I'm figuring out how it is that I want to do that. There's just stuff that you can do with Sacred Stones that you can't do with a lot of the other games. With that said, though, I'm going to wrap this one up here. Thank you, as always, to all of my patrons and my YouTube members. A little bit of a more loosey-goosey episode of the, well, in this case, Sunday Strategy Spotlight this week. But like I said, I've been a little under the weather, and my schedule is pretty crazy, so thank you for bearing with me. I'm going to have some more in-depth stuff, hopefully, for next week. A lot of other fun stuff on the horizon, streams, projects. Destiny 2, The Final Shape is just around the corner, as is Shadows of the Erd Tree. Plenty of stuff to do, so keep it tuned here. But until the next time, my name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. Hope you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there. And remember, be good to each other. Bye now.